All right. I hope you're all in a climate controlled space during this heat wave that we're having. Just as a reminder, this critical conversation is going to be recorded and it will be posted to the president's intranet page by the end of the week. If you have to miss some of it or if you want to share it with a colleague, it'll be there waiting for you. During the presentation today, chat will be turned off so that we can focus on the information that Peter is sharing. And then once it's open for questions and answers, I'll open it back up again and you can ask questions by either putting them in the chat or preferably raising your emoji hand, and we will call on you in the order in which the questions were received. I'm going to now throw it over to President Sisson. Phil?
Thank you, Beth. Really appreciate again your moderating today. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you. It is now hard to believe that it is mid-July, and I hope that all of you are doing what we talked about in June, and that is getting out and getting some vacation as part of the summer. And I want to thank anyone who's here from faculty. We know you're off contract. Delighted to have you with us, but for the rest of you, this really is an opportunity for us to really gather over the course of the summer. The first time we did the critical conversations a couple of years ago, we did not include summer, but there's enough going on that we want to keep you informed of some of the changes and some of the things that are happening at the institution. So I thank you for your time today in advance. A couple of things, Beth, I think there's a slide. I'm going to try and entice people with a fake hamburger. So those of you know that we have for the last couple of years had an opportunity to have an employee appreciation cookout in the summer. Last year was in Lowell, and this year it will be in Bedford. So that probably means more outside fun and games, but on the quad, noon to 2. Please make sure you RSVP. That makes all of this stuff affordable for us, so we're not wasting any of our burgers or our ice cream. You bring your MCC ID, and if you just RSVP by the 29th, that gives us an opportunity to have a count. Really appreciate your RSVPing so we can be prepared for a nice afternoon of collegiality and an opportunity to share time with each other and to appreciate all that you do every day. So thank you for that, Beth. I also want to talk with all of you about the fact that I've had some great opportunity over the last few months, really over the last year, to be immersed a little bit more in this conversation about the state of AI innovation and trying to really take stock of what happens to be a really tumultuous and sort of busy year. It's actually been busy since 22 when ChatGPT first came out. And I think, I'm often reminded about Madame Curie, who talked about the fact that not exactly the idea that, we fear what we don't understand. That's not the exact quote, but it's close enough. And that is very much part of human nature. This is a time of tremendous change. And it really is going to be a time of tremendous change, both for higher education and for Middlesex. And I think part of the opportunity that I had this June was to actually spend some time at OpenAI for a presidential experience lab to work with some of the folks who are working with different levels of ChatGPT and really see where the possibilities could land. And I'm amazed by the young talent that's out there in New York, in that organization that's really making ChatGPT the next level of some of the work that will be done in AI. I think, the question here that people have asked many times is not a matter of whether or not AI would impact Middlesex, because we've lived with AI. We've had AI in a number of our software packages and in a lot of work, and students have already started to use ChatGPT. A number of our faculty have begun that use. With Peter's leadership out of professional development, we had already created some templates. We've had a professional day about AI, but this is actually changing rather rapidly. And so the idea is not about whether or not this is going to impact all of our daily lives, but a matter of when. And I think that I'm pretty cognizant of the fact that leaders in higher education make errors a lot of times around transformation. And most of the time they come in three buckets. One is the fact that people wait for a budget to be able to act. That's what I call paralysis. Like, not everything is about money. This is about a strategic conversation, much like we're having here today, about how this is going to impact all of us and how we can begin to explore and create a culture of exploration around AI, knowing that it will impact all of our work, and in many areas of the college, it has already begun to have its impact. There's also that error that a lot of institutions make about leaving AI in the hands of the IT team as if it's something to do with just IT. And again, it's going to impact all of us, and so we won't want to make that error. And the idea that I think is most important is believing that AI and our adoption of AI is a luxury and not a necessity in order for us to continue to provide a 21st century environment for our students, and in order for us to all be more efficient and effective in our work. AI is not a luxury, it will be a necessity for us, and we will plan accordingly for that. So the intent today is to use some of our own local expertise. As many of you know, several months back, we plucked Peter Shea out of his role in professional development and placed him directly in the middle of the fray of this new innovation, asking him to step in specifically in both academic and student affairs to work as assistant dean for AI integration. And he's going to talk about that plan today and some of the things that we are currently doing and that we hope to do for the future. And then we're going to spend some time really answering some of your questions. And along with that, I guess it's a matter of responding to some of your fears and concerns. And then we'll give you a few minutes back at the end of the day if we finish before the end of our time. So again, thank you for all your time. Beth, thank you for your moderation. And Peter, I'm going to turn this over to you at this point to be able to do your presentation. So thank you again for putting the time in.
Thanks, Phil, and thanks, Beth. Just give me a moment here and I will start sharing my slides. Again, my name is Peter Shea. Many of you knew me in my former role as the Director of Professional Development. And a few months ago, I took on the role of Assistant Dean for AI Integration because the college recognized that this was a phenomenon that really required coordination in order to do it well. And I'm going to explain a little bit about the planning that we've gone through in terms of AI integration and how it'll likely impact your area and how I can help you with any AI-related issues. So one second here. I go share and let's see here, present. So why now? As Phil pointed out, generative AI has been around now for about 3 years. So why are we doing it now? A little background. Middlesex began looking at artificial intelligence developments around 2018, 2019, because we've always been finely attuned to the world of educational technology. It's part of our tradition. We were the first college that had first community college in Massachusetts that had an online program, and we've been an innovative space for educational technology for quite some time. So in line with that, we were paying attention to developments in the world of AI because many people who were informed saying it was beginning to, the development of it, and its affordances were developing rather rapidly. Now, many people had for over a decade on their personal devices what is called weak or narrow AI, like Alexa or Siri, where you can actually talk to it directly and it'll perform a task for you. That's a very basic level of AI. Generative AI is able to do a lot more than those narrow ones. With those narrower tools that you're familiar with, can do 1 or 2 specific tasks. Generative AI, as the term generative implies, enables it to do a variety of tasks and often do a series of tasks together, which is what makes it so uniquely powerful. Obviously, it's had a big impact on educational space, particularly in its disruption of a number of academic activities. You've probably heard about faculty's concerns about students using AI cheating or to cut corners in their work. And there's been a very large conversation in higher education on how to address that. Apart from that, AI is having an enormous impact on the workforce. If you've been following, again, the literature on it, there are a number of companies that have integrated AI into their processes, and we'll be expecting both their existing employees to become more AI literate, as well as any people coming to the company or organization who expect to be employees in AI. So there is an institutional risk of passivity by waiting and being too reactive. And again, it's been our tradition to kind of get out in front, understand the phenomenon, and engage with it constructively as educators do. So as I indicated, why we can't afford to ignore AI. The faculty challenges is one that every college in the world and every school in the world is dealing with right now to varying degrees. Again, we've always had a very constructive relationship with technology. And I think that's a real strength that we bring to this challenge, because we had faculty who were using AI tools, experimenting with AI tools even before ChatGPT emerged. So we had a cohort of people who were prepared to have a very constructive conversation about it and weren't paralyzed by fear. Unfortunately, that's not true of many organizations and colleges, and we've had a real advantage in that. The other is operational efficiency demands. As you know, the world of higher ed is in a state of flux, and the challenges of us performing our tasks is becoming greater and greater, particularly as many resources that we've come to count on seem to be diminishing. So operational efficiency demands have increased. And AI, among other things, is seen as a tool that can really enhance operational efficiency, both at the departmental level and at the level of the individual employee. The equity issue. Again, what we're doing around AI isn't something entirely new. It grows out of our existing institutional mission-driven initiatives and goals. Generative AI will either help bring about more equitable opportunities, or will increase the gap between those who have and the have-nots. So any organization that takes equity work seriously must engage with AI. And of course, that is very much in tune with our mission. And we don't want to increase the digital divide. We don't want our students falling behind in terms of what they can do in the world at large. You've probably been hearing about private four-year colleges and some public colleges making a big deal about buying chatbot licenses for all their faculty, students, and staff. Obviously, they're trying to give the members of their college community an advantage. Although I don't think buying everybody at the college, including students, a license is necessarily the best approach. To me, it's like buying everyone a car and then saying, we'll get around to giving driving license lessons later. I think this is a very serious technology, and it requires a serious, thoughtful engagement of it. And again, that's something that at Middlesex we have been particularly good at. So what is my role as Assistant Dean for AI Integration involve? What it means is I help departments, areas, and individuals figure out how to integrate AI into their work. So I help facilitate conversations. I am not an expert on all things AI. I don't know anyone who is. And if you encounter someone who is, I would avoid them like the plague. We're all kind of absolute beginners right now. And the best people in the AI world that I've had the privilege to work with are very informed men and women, who are very humble in the sense of what they know, what they think they know, and what they don't know, and what they hope to know. So with an idea of humility, we go forward to understand and have a conversation. At Middlesex, we've always had a community of practice model for professional development. You know, it's always about getting people in a room and talking to one another and figuring out collectively how we move forward on certain things. And AI is no different from that. My role will also be about providing ongoing training around specific tools, as well as documenting what we do and what works and what doesn't work. So it's really much, we're in an age of experimentation. There is no AI integration guidebook out there. We will be writing it as we go along. And it's going to become part of our collective voice to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And that, to me, is one of the most exciting, challenging, and creative part of it. I will be assisting different areas with figuring out AI usage policies relevant to their work. An example of that is I've been working with marketing and communications to figure out how to formulate policies around the appropriate, ethical, and effective use of AI, which allows individual employees maximum flexibility while recognizing there have to be guardrails around creating any kind of media material and communication material that involves AI. Again, this is involved over ongoing thoughtful conversation about evolving best practices. And one thing I would point out that we've learned about creating AI policies from all colleagues is that there's no fixed policy. Well, every policy out there as effective as of this date, to be looked at again in 3 to 6 months. So AI policy is unique in the sense that it is trying to evolve around an incredibly accelerating technology. And so when we have policies and guidelines that we put out to people, they should bear in mind that they're not fixed in stone and they will likely evolve as the situation changes. At the college, apart from figuring out how to best use AI tools that are integrated into our existing technology like Microsoft Office and Blackboard, we've also been leading the way in terms of creating customized tools for specific areas and seeing how well they impact it. A colleague of mine, Donald Clark, who is, I would say, an expert in the adoption of AI for the workforce and learning, has said that the best way to think about AI is to think about it like a form of energy, like electricity. AI is essentially something that many people are going to be plugging into things. So the question is, what do you want the AI to power for you? What sort of tool would be most effective? And so with that in mind, we're going to be thinking about the possibility of creating more in-house tools that use AI. For example, we are trying to design right now a tool using AI that assists students with English self-placement. It's still in the tinkering experimentation stage, but hopefully we'll be able to deploy it for students as an additional help for them to understand what English course they should take when they first join MCC. Another tool that we've been working on is one that helps students with thinking about interviewing process and creating effective resumes and cover letters. So that's one of the things that I'll be talking to people about and trying to get from them ideas about potential tools for their areas. Also, I'll be doing a lot of work around upskilling faculty and staff and helping them figure out how to best use tools in their own areas, and working with external partners to promote AI adoption. I'm part of MOC, which is a group for people in public colleges in Massachusetts, trying to figure out issues around policy development, professional development, and AI initiatives that can likely support collaboration between the different colleges in Massachusetts public system. So we have developed an AI strategic plan for the coming year, and I want to familiarize you with the outlines of it. In terms of assessment and planning, spring and summer, we began to work with departments, as I said, with marketing, to craft AI usage policies. I also spent time looking at existing policies at other colleges to get a sense of what has worked and what isn't, what hasn't worked. We conducted a survey on current AI usage at the end of the spring semester. Again, I want to begin to have more conversations with different areas about as they formulate policies for AI usage in their departments. We have begun a conversation around establishing an AI advisory board, much like the one we've had for professional development, where we have a number of college stakeholders, faculty and staff, and hopefully a student as well, who can have conversations about how we integrate AI using a variety of diverse viewpoints to inform our plan going forward. The other thing that I'm working on and that I hope to launch in the fall is specific micro-credential training for faculty and staff, so we can track where people are trained around specific AI tools and usage, and we have a sense of who's been trained and what areas they have been better informed at, so that we have faculty and staff who have a high level of AI literacy. Moving forward, again in the fall, we're going to experiment with a number of tools developed specifically using AI. We're going to extend more training for specific institutionally supported tools. For example, when you log into MyMCC and you log into Office tools, the first screen you see these days is Microsoft Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's AI-supported chatbot, and it has many of the functionalities that you find in other chatbots, such as ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude, and that is the tool that is available to any college employee. I think it's also available to students as well, but I'd have to confirm that with Pramod. We're going to, again, do a number of work around looking at the AI tools, specifically in Blackboard Ultra, now that the college has shifted to Blackboard Ultra as the new setting for our LMS. We're going to look at ways to pilot AI-driven tutoring and student support in selected courses. And what does AI-driven tutoring mean? It doesn't mean a solely AI tutor. Our model around AI tools is this. It's hybrid, and it's in collaboration with humans. So an AI-driven tutoring would be where students might initially work with an AI tutor, and the AI tutor gains some information about the student's needs, and then ideally would develop a short report about the student's need, which could be shared with the human tutor. So again, core to our model here is not replacing human labor with AI, but using AI to strategically augment our human labor. We also will look at AI tools for fostering connections and enhancing a sense of belonging, and creating an AI literacy module for students, because it's obviously essential that our students begin to understand more about AI, how it's impacting their world, how it's impacting what they're doing in school, and how it's going to impact what they do when they go out into the workforce. At the end of the fall, we're going to collect our data, see what worked and what didn't work, analyze tool performance, and then adjust based upon the feedback we get. And in the spring, the plan is to figure out, after we figure out what worked and what didn't work, is to scale our successful initiatives and then expand AI programs to additional courses and departments, and with a particular eye towards AI assisting accessibility for students, and continuing our training and support. So what does that mean for your areas? What will I be doing with your different departments? I will collaborate with your departmental liaisons or designated point persons. I have office hours for consultations. I'll be giving workshops and demos. I'll be sharing out through Newscaster regular information and updates relevant to AI. Right now, as you probably know, the information around AI tools is like a fire hose. Part of my job, hopefully, is to curate things that are specific to your work and then present them to you via Newscaster with a follow-up through consultations and workshops. And I'm always open, because this is an evolving role, for information on feedback and ideas to build into it. So I'm going to be looking to you to help me figure out what it means to be an assistant dean for AI integration. Again, quick comment, a few common questions. Will it be used to replace people? No, our focus here is on augmentation, not replacement. How do we protect student data and academic integrity? That involves developing institutional safeguards and transparency, and that's where, again, policy development is going to be crucial. Is this another tech fad? No, it's not. It is an evolutionary leap in technology, and it's here to stay. And what we'll be doing for the next decade or so is figuring out how we adjust our mission and our role to maximize its impact for our students. And so we'll be grounding our AI work in our pedagogical approaches and our mission. I get questions often about the environmental impact of AI. Obviously, AI tools use a great deal of energy. One of the things that I've been hearing from the field is that that's one of the areas that's being tackled the most. So we will be seeing, and have already begun to see, ways of using AI that has less of an environmental footprint, including use of open source AI tools, which is something I'm going to be learning more about in the coming year. Central to our mission is thinking critically about how we get equitable access for AI for all faculty, staff, and students. So again, the use of AI is going to be embedded in our existing equity work. And those of you who've been doing equity work, your input is going to be absolutely essential to what we're doing as we go forward. How can you assist with this? Well, if you want to volunteer for a pilot for using tools, I'm always glad to hear from people. You can schedule a consultation. When I stop showing the slides, I'm going to be putting into the chat, when it becomes available, a link to a AI consultation form, which I'll be using to set up specific targeted workshops for areas as well as consultations. based upon my experience, that's going to be more useful than simply putting out a schedule of workshops. This way I can customize to people's availability. I'll provide feedback on AI tools that you're using. If I'm not familiar with them, I will research them. And you can suggest tasks that we're not using AI for currently that you think AI might have an application for. Again, my approach is not to foist AI into everything. It's a tool. It will be very useful for some things. It'll be minimally useful for other things, and it won't be useful for other things as well. So again, figuring out where it fits into our roles. It's a challenge for all of us, but it's a challenge that helps us. It's not just a challenge; it will help us as a lever to achieve our mission-aligned goals. So I always think of AI. I start with our strategic initiatives, and then I think about AI. That's the best way to go about it. And I think with intentionality, we can shape it in a very useful way. And I think the college, as in many things, is positioned to be a leader and not a follower in this. So I've given presentations at a number of conferences where people have come up to me and saying, I know you guys at Middlesex say you're starters, but you're already way ahead of what we're doing at my college. Can you give us some advice? So, we are positioned to lead in this. So that's my elevator pitch. Now I think is a good time to stop and open up to questions.
Peter, Beth, if you want to moderate questions, that'd be great.
Will do. The chat has been opened, so feel free to put your question, comment, or feedback for Peter in the chat. Or better yet, raise your hand emoji and we will call on you. And Peter did just drop in the chat the consultation workshop request form. So I recommend clicking on that and then bookmarking it.
Peter, you left everybody speechless. Oh, Veronica.
Hi, I'm a librarian on the Bedford campus. I just have a question regarding the phase 2 teaching education of students on AI literacy, which I'm assuming will also incorporate ethical use of AI. My question is, will this be a requirement for the students? Will it function sort of like an IDS course, or will it function as like a workshop module? What does the school envision in terms of educating students on the use of AI?
I can't speak to whether or not it'd be a requirement. I can certainly say that the development of a module is certainly doable. How it's implemented is still open for conversation. And any input that people have on that topic is most welcome. But I think, certainly making it the minimum available, a module available for our students is an important first step.
Yeah, Veronica, I would just say that as a librarian and all the librarians that are on with us this afternoon, they're an important touch point with Peter over the course of the summer. I encourage you to bring your librarian staff together to have a conversation about certainly the ethical uses of it, which I think is part of policy and regulatory piece that we need to work on. But most importantly, talking about how this interfaces with information literacy work that's already being done so aptly by folks in the library. And we know that they have been part of that education and part of the curriculum, and where this fits in the curriculum is going to be an ongoing conversation. And I think it's a matter of not a matter of any individual spot where this may belong. I mean, it's funny because everyone always believes everything belongs in FYE courses, right? We have to capture. No wonder students have to drink from a fire hose because we give them everything at the beginning. I think the issue is, how do we find touch points along the student's experience that are best suited for that? And again, in a shared governance environment, we want faculty to play a role in this. So I think this is going to be an ongoing discussion, but I think an opportunity, Peter, for you to work with Jordana and the staff would be terrific to talk through some of these issues and see where we might be able to use some of their literacy expertise to be able to, have this be part of an adjunct of what we're already doing.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Veronica. Quick plug here, Peter. Judy Hogan, as you know, is already using AI, and she's interested in participating in any pilots.
I will reach out to you, Judy. Thank you very much.
Didn't Judy Hogan retire?
No one retires from
Retire from this
Middlesex.
institution? I'm only kidding.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Yeah, I
Glad
could.
you're with us, Judy.
I miss you. I miss the work. So here I am.
We're still here and there's still plenty of work.
All right, Valerie, you're next.
Yes, as we work with our students with disabilities, I talk with them a lot about the use of when to use AI, when not to use AI, et cetera, et cetera. And several of them have questioned, is it cheating to use AI to assist them in summarizing and comprehending their course content, not for use for research or writing papers or anything like that, but helping them clarify content. Where do we stand as a college in relation to that?
I can just give you my answer there is that, you know, using AI as in that context, you're using it as a study guide to simplify it. So I think that represents an appropriate use of it, as long as you're not being assessed on your ability to summarize material.
I agree. Yeah.
Then that's a perfectly, and I've used AI and many professionals use AI to provide summary points of ideas so they can adjust. It assists with a cognitive load issue, which is, you know, how do you consume information? And, you know, people do that. Sometimes they not only use AI to summarize information, but they use AI to say, can you give me this information in a series of metaphors? Which is another way in which people have facilitates understanding. So yes, I think that's an appropriate way, but I'm very glad the students are asking the questions and going forward like that, because I think the students are eager to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, and I would just say, Valerie, and I always love your questions. The point behind this here is that there may not be any one definitive answer to that, although I think we can try and pivot the conversation around what's a tool and what's cheating, right? And it depends on the assignment and it depends on the syllabus, but in many, many ways, I think we have to start thinking about ChatGPT and other available tools that will be able to assist students, that we want to make sure that they have access to it. So many of our students are already using ChatGPT and other tools, and they're not asking the question. So again, you know, kudos to the student for asking that. But my assumption is that we want students to be able to use tools to be able to better comprehend material. That happens in a variety of ways, and think ChatGPT can play a role in that, and has. And we've seen that in a vast array of usages that faculty have identified and have included in the work. So I think that's there'll be an evolving answer to that question, but I know as you and all the folks that work with students directly are always asking more questions and making sure that you're directly connecting with faculty members to get a better answer specifically about the course, the assignment, or the teacher and their feelings around that. But there will be some policy development, and I think we have to start thinking about using the tool as a different phrase rather than consistently going back to this idea of cheating. We all use tools that are more efficient, and ChatGPT is not going away. And so therefore, how do we create assignments, create opportunities for students to be able to use this tool in a meaningful way that we construct those methodologies or co-construct with students about how they can best use it. And it will take a while for our faculty to become comfortable and fluid with that, but I think we can continue to say that ChatGPT is a tool, and we expect that, and we already know that most students are already using it, and many faculty and staff are already using it.
Great, thank you.
All right, Peter, I have a question here from Ryan Green. How are we reconciling our mission for equity while simultaneously championing technology whose negative impacts, currently and most likely in the near future, disproportionately affects marginalized communities?
I would probably need a clarification of how it disproportionately marginalizes certain communities. I wouldn't necessarily share that assumption. So I'm not sure how I can really answer that question. I don't assume that AI has a disproportionate impact on marginalized communities. So I don't have an answer for that.
And then a question that is, I guess, tangentially related. How would we ensure that AI implicit bias doesn't have an effect the decision-making process of the tools that you have been describing earlier?
That's always an issue because AIs are trained on human data, and human data is in fact impacted by bias. There's no way around that. We are more aware of it now than we were 20 years ago when we started using other technology tools. That's one sign of progress. I think major providers of AI are well aware of the importance of reviewing their training data, but you can't rely solely on them. I think the two safeguards, number one, are the review of any AI output by an informed, critical thinking human being before it's used in another context. And also the quality of the prompt as well, to shape it in a way that makes it clear to the AI that you are mindful of potential biases and that your prompt to the AI should bear that in mind. Those are the two ways in which I think it can be best addressed currently. Whether a better approach emerges in the future, I don't know, but that's how I go about it.
Yeah, and I think I would go back to the librarians in terms of a tremendous amount of effort has been spent at this institution around information literacy by individual faculty members, collectively by departments, and certainly by our support folks that are in the library. And I would say that there are so many questions we have about the access that students have to a lot of information, the implicit bias that comes through that information, and how do we, the idea is how do we continue to help students make good decisions about the tools and the information that they're receiving so that they can actually use their critical thinking skills to identify where they are seeing bias. And I think that that's something that we have to continue to be part of. And in fact, we'll be having conversations here around general education and the skills that we expect of students as they graduate. I further anticipate that's going to be a very robust discussion as we begin that discussion this spring and talk more about general education, which is about time for it to be reviewed at Middlesex.
And then Peter, Ryan Green followed up to his comment to provide an actual example. He says off the top of his head, he's thinking about environmental impacts. So those environmental impacts in the near future disproportionately affecting marginalized communities.
Yeah, so by that I mean, you mentioned that it's getting better, but I mean, it's kind of like the whole thing where fusion power is always 30 years away. And so is it getting better? Possibly, but at this point, they are marginalized communities are being affected. I mean, the Hamptons aren't the ones being hit with climate change effects.
Yeah, I don't really have an answer for that. I mean, I do know that they're working on it, and I do know in terms of the energy consumption, that's one of the big questions that's facing the AI community. But I don't know, Ryan. I really don't. I can't answer that.
Energy and water.
I do know that we are more mindful of it in the past, and that there are a number of voices that saying as we move forward with this, we cannot move forward with it ethically unless we address this. But it's the larger issue of not just AI, but all energy consumption, because as you know, these issues around how we use energy and which communities are impacted by the energy usage and where we store waste, for example, going back, it's a larger question. And AI is simply the latest chapter of that. All I can say, hopefully, is that issue has been raised since day one with AI, where it wasn't with earlier technologies, which I tend to take as progress, but I don't know what the emerging solution is.
Thank you, Ryan and Peter. Shannon Carroll posted in the chat, Peter, while using AI for summarization can definitely be helpful at times, I'm worried about students not developing critical thinking and analytic skills as well if they're always relying on AI for comprehension.
Agree. That's a very good concern because they won't develop critical thinking if they're always relying on it, which is one of the reasons why having conversations with students about the importance of productive struggle and saying, number one, there are appropriate, for example, I teach and I talk about appropriate uses of AI and inappropriate uses of AI in the class, and I explain why something is classified as an appropriate or inappropriate one. And so students will get that, but as I'm sure you're aware, Shannon, students will still say, well, I just want to get through it. which leads to another question about changing our assignments in a way that make it more difficult for students to simply use AI as a cheat tool. And this is not a new conversation. It's one I've been observing for over 25 years, since the beginning of, since the internet was introduced, when the issue was that students could look up answers really quickly. And the answer was, you have to redesign your assignments. You can't simply continue with certain legacy assignments. You have to design assignments that acknowledge the fact that they're seeking information in this information context. So in a sense, it's an assignment design challenge for educators. But yeah, again, the issue with productive struggle, making students understand that this use of AI is appropriate scaffolding and this is inappropriate. And we go forth from there. That's all we've ever been able to do.
Thank you, Peter. We have a multi-numbered question in chat with letters too. So from Susan Hutchinson, number 1, A, what are the implications of incorporating AI specific to security issues, privacy, and data breaches? And B, how real are these privacy issues?
Okay, the first thing is a classic issue that comes back to FERPA. When we use any technology, we should be very mindful of what information we're putting into it and realize it's going out there. This, again, is an issue that predates generative AI. Even when you do web searches and you put information in there, it's going out into a public database. I think with generative AI, people have become more aware of it, but the problem has been there all along. So again, as part of employee training, we had to make people mindful of not only what sort of AI tools you should use to enhance your work, but how you should use them in a way that doesn't violate any issues around privacy and security. So it's not a technology issue, it's more of an awareness issue. And that's where a lot of our cybersecurity training comes in. I've seen a great increase in the cybersecurity training library over the past couple of years of cybersecurity training related to AI issues. And we're going to see that more and more in the future. So are they real? Yes, they always happen, and we will address them as we have in the past.
Number 2, what are the development and implementation costs in dollars of AI across multiple arenas / domains at MCC?
What is the cost of the implementation? Right now, the AI tools we're using are the ones that are already integrated into the tools that we were purchased already. So I can't give you a dollar sign in terms of what the additional costs are. Bearing in mind our commitment to fiscal sustainability, we've been very, very careful to look at any opportunity with AI and look at the cost involved in it. And the AI tools, the customized AI tools, we've been able to develop at the cost of a few $1,000s. So we've kept the cost very low. And in many cases, it's far less than engaging with a vendor for an additional AI tool. But my advice has always been to look very, very carefully before we make any kind of technology investment in around AI. And again, it's consistent with our existing policy around other forms of technology. And much of what we're doing, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're simply extending our work in other domains into the world of AI. And that goes with, again, policies around student usage of AI. We look at our existing policies around student academic integrity, and then we extend it into the AI sphere. Same with fiscal sustainability around technology adoption.
And then the last one, Peter, is how are plans of study at MCC, such as computer science, going to continue being relevant given the job displacement that AI is having on programmers and others in the computer science fields?
I know that the STEM areas are looking at the impact of AI on their work. They were, in fact, our department was very early on to an awareness of this. And so there have been conversations about how AI is impacting not only the teaching of computer science, but how that's going to impact preparing our students for computer science roles. So I know that's an ongoing conversation. So there is an awareness going forward, if that's what your concern is. But what's the answer to that? I don't know. And I don't think anyone at this point knows. I was having a conversation with a colleague in Mock the other day at Worcester, who was from Worcester Polytech. And he was having an issue around with one of his own student graduates about the impact of the diminishing number of computer science entry-level jobs owing to the fact that AI is going to be used for that. That's a very big issue. It's going to be part of our ongoing conversation, which is how AI is impacting the job force, but particularly the entry-level job force. That is one of the big issues that all colleges are going to be dealing with in the years to come.
Yeah, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness in which Susan has really laid out a number of considerable challenges that come with any new technology or any innovation, but specifically the one that we're talking about. And it is not going to be very easy to immediately answer those. We have not done what some institutions have done, and Peter has mentioned this, and I know of them, that where they have gone out and bought ChatGPT licenses for every student, every faculty member. The idea is it's not fiscally sustainable. We have a very modest technology fee that's embedded within fees for our students, and certainly in comparison with our other 14 institutions. But I think that we have a number of things to be watchful of, and Susan's reminded us about those, and several of you have mentioned them. Number one is sort of the sustainability issue, both for the campus, both from fiscal stewardship, and also on top of the issues around the environment and the current use of the electricity that's required for AI. So those pieces have to be on our radar, along with the issue of what's going to be happening to our academic program. So I really, truly appreciate our faculty in computer science and in IT, and in many other areas, because I don't think any of our faculty are really particularly putting their heads in the sand about what's going to happen here. There's going to be a significant change to a number of entry-level positions. All the more reason for us to be able to work with our students so that they have some level of fluency with using the tools to be able to garner those entry-level jobs and to be able to market themselves appropriately. So I think that there's going to be a balancing act here in what we have to embed in all of our academic programs going forward. And I really do appreciate the care of those questions and the fact that they will all be serious concerns that we will not have immediate answers to. But at the end of the day, that does not necessarily mean that we will ignore the challenges that will be ahead in terms of how we continue to implement AI and take careful analysis of how this is going to impact the institution, our academic programs, all of the services that we provide to students, our general education. Everything will have to be in some way reviewed with the lens that I think Susan has referenced in her question. So thank you for those questions. They're important. Do not be frustrated by the fact that we cannot sit here today and answer all of those, but there'll be important questions that we have to answer as a community going forward, really important ones.
Peter,
Thanks,
we have go ahead, Peter.
No, I just want to promote. I had a quick question for Pramod. Pramod, do students have access to Copilot when they log into MyMCC?
Yeah, I mean, they have the Copilot that we have access to is just the Copilot chat. It's not the version that equal to like paid one, because that one you can do things. This one is just like asking some question and it will give you some answers. That's all.
Good. So it's like an introductory level. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not introductory level. Just they call it Copilot chat. It's not the pro version that you get by paying $30 per month per user.
Right. What I suspect a lot of students are going to discover is that they can get access to a number of AI chatbots like ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini, which gives them full functionality but limits the number of requests they can make per month. So many students are using the free, many people are just using the free versions. And if they sign up for 3 basic accounts of various AI tools, those 3 tools will pretty much give them everything they need without actually paying someone for a full account. So many students already have access to some pretty powerful AI chatbots. And for Google, I know that with Google Gemini, students can sign up for a free year, the full version for free. And after a year, if they continue with the dentist, like $20 a month. But for a year with an EDU email, they get the full version. So already, students have access to a variety of very powerful tools apart from the basic chatbot functionality that they have in our Copilot.
Peter, we have a question in the chat that I think you are going to love. What do you envision happening to MCC if we as an institution were to actively resist the integration and responsible use of AI in our curriculum and operations? What would the college look like in, say, 5 to 10 years compared to institutions that are embracing it now?
Well, given the fact that AI is already integrated into the tools that we necessarily use every day, whether it's Outlook, Excel, Word, Google Docs, I don't know how you can, I don't know what active resistance would look like. I mean, there might be minimal usage of it, but it's as a friend of mine said, whether you like it or don't like it, it's there. It's going to be part of your information tool environment. You can and should choose, if you don't have any need of it, like any other tool, you shouldn't use it. You know, I think it's silly to use a tool that you don't feel that you actually need, or even impedes your performance. But I'm not sure what sort of, I don't quite know what a universal resistance would look like. And moreover, I think in terms of our students, it puts them at a disadvantage, because they're not going to be spending their whole lives at the college. They're going to go out into a workforce that's going to expect them to have some degree of familiarity, fluency with AI tools. So, you know, going full Amish on AI is not going to be helpful to our students, no matter how good it may make us feel at times. So I think, as with any technology, we have to acknowledge it's there. How we use it is going to be up to us, but simply ignoring it, I don't think it as a feasible strategy. And I think
if you've been to our professional day when we had this, you'll know that there are a number of faculty that have been actively engaged in creating and designing assignments. We have departments that have been having this conversation, individual faculty members. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, that many of our software products and systems that we use all have integrated AI components of it. So AI has been on campus for years. AI has been around for years. Generative AI is a different situation, but the bottom line is AI has been around for years. And so we have not thus far actively engaged in any deliberate institutional resistance, but I can tell you what I believe it would do. I think that students, like anywhere else, will begin to vote with their feet about whether or not something is included with their curriculum, and whether or not, and by the way, the federal government will be watching us very carefully in the future, especially this administration, about whether or not the value of a community college education leads to increased employment and increased earnings. I mean, that's going to be another touch point. We're very happy that Pell was not touched, but there are specific requirements that have happened in a number of federal administrations about the value of an education and what it means in the market. That will be watched very carefully. So in essence, if the market demand is out there and this is part of the world that we exist in, we cannot put our heads in the sand around this, and we have to figure out how all of us can use it and how we can help our students become more fluent in its use. So I think it's an interesting thing to think about. It would put the institution at a significant growth disadvantage. We would have to get rid of a number of systems that we already have, and we would have to tell faculty who are already actively using it, and most of our student population that's already actively using it, that they could no longer use it. Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen.
And I would add to that something that I saw a few months ago. The London School of Economics put out a student union guide on AI that was written by the students themselves, and it was a very thoughtful document intended to show that they were thinking critically about AI usage and how it should and should not be used. But on section 5 of it said, we want to make a point of making faculty aware that we will be using these tools, whether or not you agree, whether or not you approve of them. And so it was a very important point, I thought, to say, it's an illusion to think that you can control or stop people from using these tools. They will use these tools. They are using these tools. You don't have the power to stop. You can influence how they use these tools. But shutting it out of our lives undermines our overall educational mission. We're educating people in the post-generative AI world, and we cannot ignore that. There's a very significant ethical issue, and we can debate and have conversations about how we should use it and when we should use it and the impact of how we're using it, but it's there. It's there. And I don't think, it would run counter to our traditions as a college to try to resist it, because as Phil pointed out, they will vote with their feet, and other institutions will gain the advantages of figuring out how to use this constructively if we don't.
There was a villain somewhere that talked about in a cartoon that talked about resistance is futile, right? Isn't that a
Yes, that's the Borg.
right?
That's the Borg, Star Trek.
Yeah, there you have it. Thank you. Don't know the reference, but I knew somebody would.
It's a Star Trek, resistance futile, and I've used that line in talks, and I didn't get me any fans. I didn't want to, so I've kind of like soft pedaled it. I've said it's here. It's you have agency over how you use it, but you don't have agency over how the rest of the world is going to use it, or So yes, it's like any technology. You have to critically engage with. Don't passively engage with it. That's the other problem. And I think we should be, one of our tasks is to help our students understand how it's shaping their world and how they can shape it to create the world that they want. But we can't ignore it. We can't ignore it.
And there are a couple comments in chat for folks who are on the Zoom, want to read them, that echo what Peter just said from Roxanne and Niab. Peter, we do have a question from Lisa Gibson. Can our current plagiarism software detect plagiarism in papers generated from chatbots? If not, what alternative recommendations would you have for faculty to combat the potential for this?
That has probably been one of the biggest conversations in education around AI, particularly around written work. In fact, Brian Alexander, one of the major people in the field of education, published about a couple days ago a list of like the 8 or 10 strategies that schools are using to combat the use of AI, and then he explains why all of them are essentially futile. Generative AI creates an entirely new document. So you can't trace it to like an original. Oh, this was a copy. It's not a copy of something. It's an original work that's patterned on human behavior, language behavior. So you can't detect it. And the AI detection tools that have been used out there have an incredibly high level of false positives, particularly for students for whom English is not their first language. A few weeks ago, Jose Bowen, who wrote the book Teaching Naked, is very well known in the field of pedagogy. He and Edward Watson led an AACU AI symposium in Charleston, and Watson projected up on the board the number of false positives that Turnitin had generated over the past 10 years prior to the arrival of generative AI. And it was something like over 800,000 false positives among millions of students. He said, so think about that. Before AI, plagiarism detection was a faulty thing to begin with. And we have at least a record of 800,000 cases of students being falsely accused of plagiarism. So in the generative AI age, those tools can create even more, destruction of the relationship between the faculty and the student. So we have to get past that. In terms of writing, you can have multi-stage writing. You should be having conversations with your students about what they're learning. You can have oral conversations. There are a number of things which make it more difficult, but there is nothing that makes it impossible. That's the important thing to bear in mind. There's no way, we never had a foolproof or nearly foolproof system against cheating. And now that's even more transparent than before. So trying to bring back that world, I don't think is very effective. We have to have a conversation about new curricular approaches that both elicit the learning we want students to acquire, but also in a way that ensures that there's a level of academic integrity.
Yeah, and I think the other piece, and I think, Lisa, it's a great question. It's one that's been asked over and over, and it's been asked for decades, because this goes back to the use of calculators in math. It goes back, I mean, we could follow this through all of history. What I would say is it requires us to rethink the definition of plagiarism, and it requires us to rethink the way we are delivering education and what we are expecting of students, and how we can proactively train them to use ChatGPT in a way that we would want them to use it, and how do we actually help to develop some of the skills that we're talking about that are critical thinking skills through the use of AI. And there are examples of how that's being done in a number of places.
Yeah. Yeah, we're at a very interesting spot where we're going to really, I've been hearing about 21st century education for 25 years. I think this is the first time we're actually going to begin to hear a model of education that is unique to the 21st century. And the next decade is going to be about developing. It's going to be one of the great creative challenges of education, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we can meet it. But we have to first get out of this denial stage that we can save a lot of old methods and ways of doing things. I don't think they're salvageable. We're going to have to move forward and think of new ways. And I think Middlesex is posed to be a particularly good innovation hub for the kind of conversations around what this new model should look like.
All right, there are no other questions in the chat. I will say, folks who are on the Zoom, your colleagues are posting lots of links to information about AI in higher ed and the environmental impact. So please, if you're interested, click on those and bookmark them later so that you can review them. But Peter, right now, I don't see any other questions in chat, and I do not see any hands raised.
Well, then I'd like to take an opportunity to thank everyone who posted a question, including those I couldn't give you a good answer to. That's the kind of conversation we should be having on a regular basis. This is a model of what should be going on, because this is a critical conversation, not just for today, but for ongoing. So thanks for giving me really good practice at this. I really appreciate that. That's my professional development support. I will do my best in some cases to come up with better answers to some of these questions. But again, this is such a, I can't think of no parallel in my experience. It's just a rapidly developing field as this is. And all we're doing is trying to respond as best we can.
Yep, and I think I want to go back to Peter's next to last slide. His last slide is asking about questions, but really to talk about, how does that impact each and every one of you? So I think there are, as Peter has identified, a form, but inviting Peter to a department meeting with your colleagues to talk about how you see this is currently being used by our area, what aspects of what's happening in the current tools that you're using. Are there ways that this could make some of your own work more efficient? Many of us are using ChatGPT for a number of functions in our daily operations. And so I think that the idea is, how do you begin to think about how you can use this, how you can be more comfortable with the tools, what you can learn through the process is going to be an important professional development part of what all of us can do. And I would encourage leaders and managers to reach out to Peter so that you can have more concentrated conversations about how it's really impacting your area and what we may be able to do to best support you in that process. So again, I want to thank you all for your time, and thank you again for participating in this, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And remember, it's summer, so hopefully you'll get a chance to get out there and get a little sunshine and really enjoy some time away. As we begin the August move into really making sure that we can register all of our students and are prepared for the fall. So please take care of yourselves. Great to see you all, and thank you for participating this afternoon. Beth, thank you for moderating, and Peter, thank you again for lending your expertise to the role and for answering questions that were really very insightful today about some of the challenges we have ahead around AI. So thank you all.
Thanks for the opportunity, Phil, and thanks again, Beth. Thanks for everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.